The distress beacon crackled through Lyra's helmet cum as she surveyed the crystalline wasteland of Vareth 7. 3 weeks into her solo geological survey, she had grown accustomed to the planet's eerie silence, the way the binary suns cast double shadows across the frozen plains, how the wind carved singing sculptures from the ice formations. But this sound was different, organic, desperate. Lyra adjusted her scanner, tracking the signal's origin to a collapsed ice shelf 2 kilometers north. Her training screamed caution. Unknown lifeforms on uncharted worlds meant protocols, quarantine procedures, and about 17 different forms to file. But something in that cry, something raw and terrified, pulled at a part of her that existed before academy training. Before the sterile corridors of the Terran Survey Corps, she found Tavy wedged between 2 massive sheets of glacial ice, his iridescent fur matted with frozen blood. The cub couldn't have been more than a few months old by Lyra's estimation, though she'd never seen anything like him in the xenobiology databases. He was roughly the size of an earth lynx, with luminescent stripes running along his flanks that pulsed weakly in the twilight. But it was the saber-toothed, elongated canines that curved like scimitars from his small jaw that marked him as something ancient, something that should have been extinct on any evolved world. When Tavy saw Lyra approach, he didn't snarl or retreat. Instead, he extended one oversized paw toward her, and the most remarkable thing happened. Images flooded Lyra's mind, not words, but pure emotional data. She saw through Tavy's eyes, a pack of adults, fierce and magnificent, being torn apart by mechanical hunters with plasma claws. She felt his terror as he ran, his anguish as he fell through the ice, his resignation as the cold began to claim him. And then, crystalline clear, she felt his plea. Help. Lyra's hands moved before her mind could catch up. She activated her suit's thermal field, melting the ice around Tavy carefully, slowly. The cub whimpered as she worked, his mental voice a constant stream of pain and fear and desperate, fragile hope. When she finally pulled him free, he collapsed against her chest, and Lyra made a decision that would alter the course of 2 species. The survey ship's medical bay wasn't designed for alien fauna, but Lyra improvised. She synthesized nutrients based on Tavy's biological scan, adjusted the atmosphere to match Vareth 7's composition, and spent 48 hours straight monitoring his vital signs. The cub's resilience astonished her. Despite severe hypothermia, lacerations across his flanks, and what her scanner identified as a fractured forelimb, Tavy fought for every breath. On the 3rd day, he opened his eyes fully for the first time. They were prismatic, shifting through colors Lyra had no names for, and when he looked at her, she felt his gratitude wash over her like sunlight. That's when Lyra discovered what made Tavy's species truly extraordinary. The cub wasn't just telepathic, he was a living archive. As his strength returned, the mental images grew more complex, more detailed. Lyra saw Vareth 7 as it had been millennia ago. Cities of light carved into mountains, oceans of liquid crystal, and Tavy's people, the Velkari, as the planet's guardians. She witnessed the arrival of the harvester fleets, machines from the galactic core that consumed rare elements without regard for indigenous life. The Velkari had fought. Oh, how they'd fought! But they were artists and philosophers, not warriors. Their psychic abilities let them share dreams and memories, build consensus across continents, but offered little defense against plasma and steel. In 3 generations, they'd been reduced from billions to scattered packs, hiding in the frozen wastes. Tavy showed her the harvester's weakness to a central processing node located in the southern polar complex. Destroy it and the entire fleet would go dormant long enough for a proper military response from the Terran coalition. But the node was guarded by thousands of autonomous units, and Lyra was just one geologist with a survey ship and too much stubbornness for her own good. She should have called for backup, should have transmitted her findings and waited for the fleet. But as Tavy curled against her each night, sharing memories of his mother's songs and his father's hunting lessons, Lyra understood something her academy instructors had never taught her. Sometimes humanity's greatest strength wasn't superior technology or military might. It was the irrational, beautiful impulse to stand between the innocent and the abyss. The southern complex rose from the ice like a geometric nightmare, all sharp angles and humming energy. Lyra approached at dawn, when both suns crested the horizon simultaneously, casting minimal shadows. Tavy rode in a modified cargo pack on her back, his mental voice a steady presence in her mind, guiding her through the harvester's patrol patterns he'd memorized during his pack's final stand. The infiltration should have been impossible. Lyra was a scientist, not a soldier. But she had two advantages the harvesters couldn't account for: human creativity and Velkari prescience. When Tavi sensed the patrol ahead, Lyra would shift routes. When mechanical sentries blocked her path, she'd jury-rigged distractions from survey equipment. And when the moment came to overload the processing node, it was Tavi's psychic map of the facility's layout, passed from his ancestors through generations, that showed her exactly where to place the charges. The explosion lit up the polar sky like a supernova. As they fled, Lyra felt the harvester fleet shuddering down across the planet, thousands of machines going silent in synchronized defeat. She also felt something else through her connection with Tavi. Hundreds of Velkari minds, hidden and waiting, suddenly blazing back into awareness. The survivors were calling to each other, realizing they weren't alone anymore. 3 months later, the Terran Coalition fleet arrived to find Vareth 7 stabilized. The Harvester's dormant ships were being dismantled, their technology studied, their threat neutralized. And at the center of it all was an unusual partnership: a human geologist who'd stumbled into becoming a hero, and an alien saber-toothed cub who taught her that sometimes the most incredible journeys begin with a simple plea for help. Tavi had grown in those months. His sabers gleamed, his prismatic eyes shone with intelligence, and his mental voice had matured into something profound. The Velkari were returning from hiding, rebuilding their civilization with Lyra as an honored advisor. The Terran Coalition was drafting first contact protocols, establishing embassies, forging alliances. But in the quiet moments, when the diplomatic missions ended and the military strategists finally left them in peace, Lyra and Tavi would sit together under Vareth 7's binary sunset. The cub, no longer quite so small, would rest his massive head on her lap, and they'd share memories: his people's ancient songs, her world's countless stories, and the singular moment when an alien's desperate plea had been answered by a human's irrational kindness. In the cold equations of galactic politics, it shouldn't have mattered. One human, one cub, one impossibly reckless rescue. But as Tavi's psychic voice whispered contentment through their bond, Lyra understood what the Harvesters never could. Humanity's true power wasn't in weapons or starships. It was in that stubborn, beautiful refusal to walk away when anyone called for help. And sometimes, just sometimes, that made all the difference in the universe.